Yeah, we have our lovely Jarrett. I'm so sorry I couldn't get his time to give him a better intro, but I just want to know what you are doing for the last 17 years in Marketing Cloud and what still you can learn and explore. The stage is yours, Jarrett. It's very quick, but I want you to say more. Thank you.
You want me to do it?
Yeah.
Look, I've got a fair bit of this inside the Prezzo, so I'm happy to go through. Look, my intention here is to do this very casually. Um, my understanding sort of coming into this was I know that there's a huge swathe of potential talent that isn't in Marketing Cloud at the moment. There are people that are starting out in Marketing Cloud. I've taken it more from the point of view of the experience that I've gained over the, well, as you said, Lakshmi, it's actually coming up to 18 years that I've been working in, not in Marketing Cloud, but in, I guess, digital marketing. Um, and I guess across that, I've worked in a number of different positions. Um, I've taken this from the point of view of, you know, this is where I've been, these are the things that I've done, this is what I would look for. If I was looking to hire somebody that was looking to start out in Marketing Cloud, or even if I was looking to hire someone experienced in Marketing Cloud, um, with the given the reality of the Marketing Cloud landscape. And then I guess I'll finish up on sort of skills that you could learn if you are looking to move into Marketing Cloud, sort of soft and hard skills, as well as a couple of little tidbits that I've sort of picked up along the way in the way that I like to do it. Matt, do you want to feel free to, if anybody has any questions on the way through, there's a reason why your microphone's on, shout out. So I'm happy to answer anything as we go along. So this is going to probably form a little bit of the backdrop of why I'm going to talk about the things that I'm going to talk about. Understanding sort of, I did my university degree, this was back in, I did uni from 1999 to 2003. I started with a Bachelor of IT and Engineering, which was very heavy on sort of IT, coding, databases, sort of everything to do with software engineering. The engineering side of things was a traditional engineering degree, but it was also heavily geared towards software engineering. The reality is I didn't pick that up particularly well, so I only did a year of it. I didn't really enjoy it. And then I jumped to what was possibly, I went from something that had 36 contact hours to a course that had 13 or 14, which was multimedia. Multimedia I loved, and multimedia is probably, I found that for myself, it really helped me get into sort of the Marketing Cloud space. I've hired people that have done equivalent degrees and found that they're generally successful in it. It's more about learning software than it is about learning theory. A lot of IT and engineering, yes, you learn the theory about how to code. You learn what object-oriented programming is and what classes are and all that sort of stuff. But the multimedia degree that I did was more about, well, here's this software that Macromedia back in the day, Adobe now makes, called Photoshop or Illustrator or Dreamweaver or After Effects, and it was more about learning it. So from the point of view of like sort of getting into the Marketing Cloud ecosystem, they were both helpful, but they're both very, very different things. From the point of view of the work career that I've had, I started out in 2005, and from 2005 to 2013, I worked at a company called Digital Logic. Matt was a colleague there. Elliot Harper was a colleague there. A lot of people in the Salesforce Marketing Cloud ecosystem around Melbourne sort of moved through there at some point in their existence. While I was there, I was the digital production manager. So from that point of view, well, I started as just basically first lot of skills towards becoming a developer and then basically leading the team. So from that point of view, I got to do a little bit of hiring and the like, which is what's going to form the part of like what I would actually look for in a candidate. When Digital Logic broke up in mid 2018, I moved to Deloitte Digital. Going back, Digital Logic was a Salesforce partner. We were more of an agency style partner, which meant that a lot of it was we did implementations. We did a lot of stuff that was sort of day-to-day. We didn't really come in and do individual projects within a marketing cloud instance. It was more about looking after the platform as a whole. We would help administer and run other companies' platforms on a day-to-day basis. Marketing Cloud was a different beast back then too. From the point of view of Deloitte, I guess I would call them a consultancy partner, where a lot of it's about theory. It's generally project-based, like interactions with companies, but it's all very large scale. I was there for a couple of years, had enough of that, and decided that I wanted to, the quiet side was a little bit more important to me. So I moved to Crown and I worked client side. Did that for a couple of years and then realized that sort of I wanted to jump across and potentially do contracting. And my main reason for that was because I didn't want to get stuck doing BAU stuff. I wanted to help companies get their marketing cloud instance up to scratch, but I wasn't really in it to do it on a day-to-day basis. So that's basically been my work career. So as a result, I've sort of worked in every different aspect that I possibly could in Marketing Cloud, every different style of company that probably interacts with Marketing Cloud, be it as a partner or client side. Haven't been to Salesforce, haven't had the desire to. But anyway, that's my background. Feel free to jump, Matt. So here's the reality of the Marketing Cloud space that I see. And some of this is going to sort of hark back to the background. There's no such thing as an ideal path into Marketing Cloud space. Now, what I mean by that is I think my very technical IT and engineering degree helped. I think my multimedia degree helped. That's a very, a theory. One's theory-based, one's practical-based. I think you could walk into it from marketing. The point is really that there's no natural path into Marketing Cloud. I don't think there's something that I could say, go and do this because it's guaranteed to work. You can come in as a technical resource. You can come in as you want to be that administrative resource. There's different options that you have coming into Marketing Cloud, and none of them are right, and none of them are probably wrong either. In my experience, in the 8 odd years that I've dealt with Exact Target and then Marketing Cloud, I've got to say, there's never been a case when there weren't jobs readily available in the space. So depending on, maybe not all the sort of jobs that you might want to do, but I can't see it changing anytime soon. There are jobs available. There are always jobs out there in Marketing Cloud. Whether or not you want to work at a partner or an agency, or whether you want to work client side, there's always going to be something there that you can do that's hopefully going to allow you to, interact with the platform. My next point's a little bit harsh, the next one. There's a lot of below average talent expecting above average pay, and that's because partners get stuck in a cycle of poaching talent from other partners. This is sort of the reality of the Marketing Cloud ecosystem. People get small amounts of experience, don't necessarily think that they know everything about the platform, but partners have always, in the ups and downs of the work that they have, they're always looking for somebody that has some experience because there's so few people with experience. So partners have a tendency to get into this, this never-ending just cycle of basically overpaying for people with limited experience. The reason why that's important is because, from my point of view, when I was a hiring manager, or when we were hired for Digital Logic, quite often we weren't in a position where we could pay a lot of money for a resource. So it was more about the attitude of the resource than necessarily the skills that they had walking in. Come to that later. The last 3 points there that are really sort of, these are realities for me. This is what I've noted in the different jobs that I've had for the different companies that I've worked at. So Digital Logic, the first place that I worked at, was your agency style partner. And if you want to learn Marketing Cloud fast, that's the sort of place where you'd want to go. The reality is, if you work at that style partner, there's a bucket load of work. there's never enough hours in the day. You'll get to do a lot of development work. But at the same time, you'll probably end up doing a lot of the same thing because you're probably going to be working in the same accounts all the time. So it may be just that, to me, that's where you get stuck in there is a desire to leave that sort of job because you'll get stuck building emails every day. It's hard to get out of that and potentially to upskill because there's just too much of that style of work. So from that point of view, can potentially become boring quickly, but it's probably also the easiest area to step into, that or client side. From the point of view of like your Deloitte style, if you want to learn the big things that Marketing Cloud has, then probably the consultancy partners are the place to go. The one thing that I enjoyed about going to Deloitte was, the whiz-bang new stuff, products that Salesforce releases, you're far more likely to walk into them and to get to interact with them than, the likes of your CDPs. I mean, Interaction Studio or Evergage, as it was when it sort of first walked in. Everything that you deal with from a consultancy partner point of view, partners are very expensive to hire. So they tend to only deal with enterprise solutions. The enterprise solutions want the biggest new products, which means that you're going to get to interact with them the most. Downside of your consultancy partners is obviously that a lot of it is about theory and not actually about practice. So you're going to be, a lot of the reasons why you get called in is to theorize over how you would do something as opposed to actually having to build it. So if you want to be able to build and you want to be able to learn fast, you want the agency style partner. If you want to be able to theorize, maybe you go later to the consultancy partner. And my last one is, if you want quality of life, that's when you go client side. For me, that was a fair few years in. The reality is, if you want to go client side, you want to go and pick a company that actually has the product as opposed to working for a partner that obviously works for companies that have the product. You're much more likely to get yourself into that 9-to-5 work life. You're probably not going to get that at the partners. Client side for me was very much a decision. I have a young family and I wanted to spend time with them. So moving client side for me at that time was the right thing to do. But when you move client side, you obviously don't have access to multiple instances of Marketing Cloud. You're only going to be working in the one. And that one part and that one company, they're going to have the kit that they have. So it can be restrictive. If your desire is to learn everything, you're pretty much stuck with partners. But you'll get the client side, you're probably going to be busy in your own way. Again, it's probably going to become repetitive because you're going to be doing the same thing again and again and again, because you only have what you have and you only engage in the way that you engage. Anyway, to me, that's the reality of the Marketing Cloud space. Do you want to jump to the next one, Matt? So given all of those things that I've said on the previous two slides, if I go back to basically my life at DigitalLogic when we were hiring, these are the most important soft skills that I would say I looked for when we were looking for people to walk into the Marketing Cloud space. The caveat for this is what I've already sort of explained. DigitalLogic was a small Marketing Cloud partner. So from that point of view, we couldn't afford, a lot of times we couldn't afford to pay, and we didn't want to pay people with small amounts of experience that would cost the world. So it was much more beneficial for us to look to hire people that had no experience, but the right attitude, and who wanted to learn, to upskill those people, knowing that they may leave in 6 to 12 months' time, but at least you're not overpaying for somebody with minimal experience in the beginning just because they could get that wage or that salary elsewhere. We tried not to go into that because we just couldn't compete at that level. But anyway, what would I look for? Soft skills. So the number one, I would have put this like 1, 2, and 3 is communication. Just from the point of view of you need to be able to articulate when you're working in Marketing Cloud, you're going to find a lot of problems. If you can't articulate the problem and you can't articulate the solution, then it becomes very difficult to interact with the people that you work with, and it basically means that it's going to make it very difficult to allow you to manage any part of a project. So communication, to me, it was always probably the most important thing that I looked for. Number two would be the ability to apply critical thinking to a problem. We had a lot of people come through Digital Logic, some successfully, some less so. The one thing that I noted for the people that I rated in Marketing Cloud, and this probably goes further than just Digital Logic, this is any of the companies that I've been at, is the ability to actually think about what you're doing. If your task is to build a large, you're trying to solution design a larger project, and you've been told what to do, my assumption would be that you would question it. So you want to be able to question the things that you're or to think about what you're doing and suggest better ways to do it. The idea that I have all the answers in the world is sort of ridiculous. I might solution design, but I want you to think about what I've told you to build and tell me if it's not right. Number three, desire to learn and take on a challenge. If you're going to move into those sort of agency style partners, to me, the attitude is one of the biggest things that you can take to the job. You've got to want to learn the things. You've got to want to better yourself. And there's no doubt that it's going to be a challenge, because all of those style partners have, as a generalization, they've got too much work and not enough staff. So a challenge it will be. That sort of leads into number four, which is self-motivation. I think if you want to succeed in the platform, if you want to get somewhere in the platform, part of it is to come along to things like this. It's to be self-motivated. You've got to guide your own destiny, I guess. Number five, honesty. So this was more in an interview sense. If I was talking to somebody and I was asking them questions, I'd look at the experience that I'd said, and a lot of, you get a CV, you get one that comes, you get lots of CVs, and you'd find somebody with a year of experience that basically said they were 9 out of 10 in SQL, they were 9 out of 10 in AmpScript, they were 10 out of 10 in journeys, and 10 out of 10 in automations. Now, to me, that's somebody that's not honest. I may as well throw that out. That's garbage. I've worked in Marketing Cloud. I've worked in, this sort of area for 15 years. I've worked in Marketing Cloud for 8. I would consider myself an expert, but I wouldn't say I'm more than an 8.5 or a 9 out of 10 in Marketing Cloud. And if you're not honest with somebody, if you're not honest with yourself, you're not honest with somebody else, then I don't know, it's not something that I'd be looking to bring into a workplace. And to some extent, loyalty. That really comes down to, especially in the circumstance that we were in, I mean, if I was looking at a CV, I wouldn't want to see somebody that jumps jobs every 6 months. It doesn't mean that you can't move, and it doesn't mean that you shouldn't move. I certainly never expected anybody to stay with us for huge amounts of time, but I certainly, I'd want to see that you're willing to sort of take on the challenge and not just run at the first bet and the next best offer that you get. So soft skills point of view, I mean, they're the sort of things that I would be looking for if I was looking to hire somebody in the Marketing Cloud ecosystem. If I was looking to, hire at that potentially lower level, I'd probably look for all of those things if I was trying to hire an absolute jet as well, a gun. Can we go to the next one? So hard skills. And this, again, is from the point of view that you may be getting into Marketing Cloud, or you want to get into Marketing Cloud. You can't get into a platform. This is the reality, right? Like, you can't get test platforms. So what are some comparable hard skills that you could actually have that might be looked on favorably? I will say the number one thing that you can do is learn the theory on Trailhead. It is all theory, and a lot of it's marketing theory. There's a lot in there about theoretically, how each of the parts of the platform work as well. I would say that's probably less important than the theory on email marketing and marketing in general. Like, you're moving into a platform that is into an area of the business that's sort of fluffy. So you need to know what a lot of that fluff is. You want to know why you do the things. You want to know why you engage with the people that you do, what your expectations are on the sort of campaigns that you run. And to know what you expect, you need to know what everybody expects. You need to know the theory of why you do the things that you do. So the Trailhead stuff is really good for that. At least upskilling in sort of the Marketing Cloud area. Number 2, learn email or web development. The email one can be tricky, I guess, but anybody can go and build a website. And the reality is, like, they're both just HTML and fundamentally HTML and CSS. They are very, very, very different. And web developers are not email developers, and email developers are not web developers. But there is enough overlap that if you know how to web develop, you could teach yourself email development over time. Email development is substantially harder because it's web development from 20 years ago. The JavaScript bit is obviously so that you can, JavaScript has a use for web development, not really for email development, unless you're sort of looking at AMP. But obviously Marketing Cloud has server-side JavaScript, so teaching yourself JavaScript is going to get you 3/4 of the way there. And one of the little, MJML, the second point that I've made there is really, it's a templating language for email development. When I have to go and build email templates now, I just use MJML. You can sort of put together a perfect, and it is a perfect responsive, it's not really responsive, it's still adaptive email in, once you've got your template sort of set up in there, you can do it really in minutes. And if I have to set up custom templates inside Marketing Cloud now, I tend to do it in MJML. It's pretty easy to learn because it's all just sort of pseudocode, but it shows you how complex email development would be if you were building that template from scratch. And certainly it's going to allow you to learn HTML and CSS along the way. Number 3, Marketing Cloud sits on top of, your ability to do anything in Marketing Cloud comes down to the data that you've got in the platform. The database at the back of Marketing Cloud is SQL Server. So learning about relational databases is never going to be a hindrance to your ability to sort of understand how Marketing Cloud works. For me, that's not just learning what SQL is and how SQL works. That is about learning how relational databases work, how indexing works inside tables, because that becomes important when you actually start writing queries, to know how to write a query right, and how to set up, do things like query optimization. What's the fastest way, or from a system point of view, how can I write this query so that it's actually going to run the fastest way? Teach yourself about relational databases, you'll learn those sort of things. Number 4, teach yourself programming. So obviously, again, AmpScript's a hard one to get into and server-side JavaScript to some extent, because it's not proprietary server-side JavaScript, but there aren't many platforms that have it. But if you go and teach yourself JavaScript, it's not a huge jump to teach yourself server-side JavaScript. If you go and teach yourself, go and write a macro in Excel, go and spin up something, have a play around in .NET and write something in C# or one of the other programming languages that live in there. If you teach yourself programming, the likes of AmpScript and SSJS actually become very, very simple, because once you can program, everything's just syntax changes, going from one programming language to another. So I've said learn about digital analytics. I've said that because it's probably one of those things that's lost a little bit in Marketing Cloud. If you look at the other Marketing Clouds that are out there, the likes of Adobe, they live very much, they're the crux of what their platforms are built on is probably third-party data, or the sort of stuff that you collect from websites. It's something that Salesforce isn't particularly strong in. I mean, you can throw that stuff into CDP now. They did have a DMP, but the ability to understand how digital analytics works, how collect codes works on the website, how GA works, and how it can interact with Marketing Cloud, having that skill set and being able to introduce that when you do get to work in Marketing Cloud is always going to be, again, very beneficial. And the last one there is really get a Marketing Cloud certification. Now, this one obviously going to cost you money, but I mean, here's the hard reality, if everybody finds out, once you become au fait with Marketing Cloud, you're going to get a lot of job offers from a lot of different places constantly. And the way that they search for you is your certifications that you put up on LinkedIn. So any certification helps, even at like the email certification, email specialist, from a Salesforce point of view, used to have the highest pass rate. It's not a hard one to get. The consultant, back when there were only 2 certifications, was a very, very difficult one to get. I don't know what the consultant one's like now. It used to be the hardest one. I don't think it would be anymore. But getting something that you can sort of pin your hat to, that would allow people to find you, is obviously going to be beneficial in getting that foot in anywhere where somebody looks for Marketing Cloud. And especially if you're willing to consider working client side as opposed to at a partner, everybody that wants to learn everything about Marketing Cloud, they're all at Salesforce partners. There's not a lot of people that are extremely knowledgeable in Marketing Cloud that work client side. So going and working client side can be a pretty simple way to upskill yourself in the platform. And obviously, anybody that's looking client side, if they can see that you have a certification, is going to assume that you know something about the platform. You've got to know something about the platform to get the certification. What they expect and what they're actually going to get, they're going to be 2 wildly different things. So sometimes they do have to settle for the best that they can get, and an email specialist certification is going to help you along that way to suggest that you're a person that could do the job for them. So that would be it for hard skills. These are things. This is probably just me finishing up. When you make it, so you get your job, what are my recommendations? Number 1, work hard. I've got where I am from the hard work that I do. It doesn't matter who I've worked for or what capacity I work for it in. I put the same hard work into every client that I work for. I'm not as invested in it anymore because I'm sort of contracting, but it doesn't stop that work hard ethic that I have, and it's going to help you climb the chain so much faster. Number 2, be realistic. So this is more about, don't take on more than you can realistically handle. And be realistic about the learning curves that you're sort of going to have to go through when you get into Marketing Cloud. Because there's no natural path into Marketing Cloud, it implies that it's a big platform. There are marketing things that you're going to have to learn. There are developmental things that you're going to have to learn. You'll probably want to learn the solution architecture and that if you're so inclined, but you've got to understand that it's a steep learning curve and it's a long learning curve. And even when you've been doing it for 8-10 years, there's still more to learn. 3, so this is based on the fact that I've been in about 30 or 40 different Marketing Cloud accounts, and I've seen some horrific things in them. So 3, set a standard in the platforms that you work in. This is my big suggestion when you go into a Marketing Cloud platform. So set a standard, be it style guides for the way that you do things. When you go and code, you want to indent code, even from the point of view of the queries that you write. You should be indenting them. You should be commenting everything that you do. Documentation, I would say, is one thing that everybody's terrible at, but setting a standard for what your expectation is for the things that you build as far as documentation goes, I would suggest is going to stand you in good stead. It's also going to stand the platform in good stead, because it means that anybody else that you bring in is going to be able to read the things that you've got. They're going to know the things that you've got in the platform. And it's going to make the platform easier to use for everybody. Number 4, understand that it's okay to say, I don't know. This one takes a long time to learn, but nobody thinks less of a person just because they don't know the answer. The reality is Marketing Cloud changes so quickly that I don't know sometimes can be the right answer, because what was right last year isn't right anymore. Salesforce will change something, the answer, and so the answer changes. But you're better off saying, I don't know, rather than putting your foot in it and getting stuck in a situation where you guarantee something is going to work or something works a certain way and then finding out that it doesn't work that way. Number 5, So to me, for the people that actually work in Marketing Cloud constantly and actually have a lot of skills within the platform, to me, this is the difference between people that are great at Marketing Cloud and people that are just okay at Marketing Cloud, is the think big mentality. And by that, I mean scale and extensibility. So what I'm talking about there is really, when you go and design something for Marketing Cloud, don't look at it as the little thing that you've been tasked to build a journey. Okay, so that's great. You go and build your journey. But did you consider how every journey works inside Marketing Cloud? Did you consider what the company, what their strategy is behind the things that they want to do in Marketing Cloud? If you think about those things and you question those things, maybe you don't build a little journey that can only work in one very specific way. You build something knowing how they might want to use it in the future, and you build something that you can scale. It doesn't have to be that to begin with, but the reality is you've built it knowing that in the future, if they want to change it in a particular way, you've allowed for it. And it's not major changes to sort of scale it into something that is fully functional and great. It's sort of the ability to phase your work too. And the last one, I guess this is just from the point of view of if you do get to manage people. If you get the opportunity to lead, succeed in public, fail in private. And that's really just, if you have people that work for you, that do a great job, you tell everybody they did a great job. I've seen a couple of examples of the second one being true. When mistakes happen, and they will happen, everybody's made mistakes in Marketing Cloud. I've knocked out stacks before. I know Elliot's knocked out stacks before. We've both done it. We both doing it the same way. But when you fail, you don't call it out in front of people. Everybody is their own harshest critic. So in a lot of cases, it's not even necessary to say a whole lot. But a quiet conversation is better than calling somebody out in a group sense. And that's probably it. That's probably all I've got. Q&A. Does anybody have any questions?
I have one.
Shoot.
When you say you can find work-life balance with a partner, or when you want to start learning Marketing Cloud, what are the ways we can find the right partner or consultant or agency? What are the ways to find them?
In a lot of cases, you're not going to know. My comment about work-life balance was more that it's more guaranteed client side. It's very hard to do partner side. When I worked for Digital Logic, there were days where I worked 18 hours. There were nights where I slept at work. It wasn't conducive to sort of a healthy lifestyle, really, not for me. Now, not every agency is certainly going to be like that, but the reality of the agency style partners is that, again, a lot of them, they're your smaller style partners. They're going to be operating on less margin than a larger consultancy style partner, which means that they're going to be accepting any work that they can get in, which means you're going to be overrun at times, and your team's going to be overrun at times. The probability that you're going to get the perfect work-life balance at the agency style partner is probably pretty slim. But if you'd go and do that work, the one thing that I probably pride myself on now is the fact that I can work very fast. And I put that down to the work that I did for years at Digital Logic, where there was just so much to do and not much time to do it. So you learn a lot of the things that you build, you won't make mistakes in. You learn to develop that skill, because mistakes mean you rework, which means time that you don't have. And that's going to allow you to go to the consultancy style partners like Deloitte. I never found Deloitte to be a huge amount of work for me, because I was used to a Digital Logic, but then I talked to a lot of people at Deloitte that thought that it was a lot of work. It's horses for courses. How do you know you're going to walk into a company where you're going to have a perfect work-life balance? You don't. And a lot of cases in Marketing Cloud partners, I would suggest you probably can't. Client side, I would say it's much more reasonable, because the client side will have lower expectations. if I wanted work-life balance, that would be where I would be. And that's why I'm doing what I'm doing. Like moving to consulting, I'm still really contracting. I sign long-term contracts and work at companies where I know for me, 99% of the time, it's going to be a 9 to 5 workday, because I want to spend time. To me, the time outside of working in Marketing Cloud is more important to me than the time working in Marketing Cloud. I don't know whether I don't think I answered your question really. Like the answer is you don't know, but yeah, you want work-life balance, client side.
No, it's not just about finding the work balance, but work-life balance. But if I want to get into Marketing Cloud, what kind of tools or what kind of measures I can take so that I can find the right opportunity to start my career in Marketing Cloud?
Yeah, look, I think, to me, the stuff that I went, that's the thing, right? Like I tried to go through today the stuff that I would look for if I was looking to hire somebody with very few, like no actual platform experience. The soft skills that I talked about are the things that I'd be specifically looking for. That would be super important. The hard skills are sort of nice to have because they parallel things that you would probably learn in Marketing Cloud, but they're not specifically about Marketing Cloud because you can't get in Marketing Cloud to learn them. I don't expect you to have experience. If you've managed to spend half an hour in there doing a training course, that's fab. That's always going to help. But if you've got something comparable that you can bring in and apply directly in Marketing Cloud, like programming skills or the understanding of databases or web development still helps. There's cloud pages in Marketing Cloud, so most people use the drag and drop stuff, but the reality is doing anything bespoke is going to be better than that. I would be looking for all of those things. They're all things that would sort of tick boxes for me. No one else?
I've got an easier one for you.
Yes, Kieran. Kieran and I work together at Crown, so he could be throwing me under the bus here.
I won't be. Best way to learn server-side JavaScript, is it learning JavaScript first? Because they're quite different, as we know.
Look, they are. They are and they're not. There's overlap in a lot of the ways that both of them work. They're both they're both independent languages. JavaScript is far more developed than server-side JavaScript. Like server-side JavaScript is just another one of those really old languages that sort of hang around and are used. Oracle uses it, Marketing Cloud uses it. The most similar programming language I've seen to it is JavaScript. So it's not going to teach you server-side JavaScript. You're going to have to go and find there's a good syntax. The Marketing Cloud documentation for server-side JavaScript is certainly much better now than it was 4 or 5 years ago. 4 or 5 years ago, it was basically worthless. The best reference back then, there's a PDF, if you go and Google it, there's an Oracle PDF about server-side JavaScript, and you can use that. It's got all the functions, or there's not many functions that are inside there that I haven't found that exist in Marketing Cloud's version of server-side JavaScript. But yeah, I say like the closest linked or programming language is probably JavaScript.
Yeah, I agree with that. And these days we're lucky enough to have like the SSJS docs, which is hosted by Ivan Razine from ampscript.xyz, which is nice. Some good snippets in there.
No, those documents are definitely good. I was just going to share, as another server-side language based on JavaScript, you could also have a look at Node.js, because whilst it's very different, and it's certainly more using a more up-to-date version of JavaScript, it's a back-end language.
Yeah, it is. Yeah.
And it's all those challenges in the back end you're going to have in Node, and you'll have them inside JavaScript as well.
That's your big leap from JavaScript to SSJS, is the fact that one's front end and one's back end. So yeah, Node's not a bad one.
I'm interested to hear that you're using MJML as a base, and that's such an easy thing to get started with. Like
It
you
is.
say.
And I've thrown everything that I've ever developed in, and so under the assumption that the email templates that you're going to get have actually been designed by somebody who knows how to design. You haven't thrown them to a graphic designer that says they know email design but doesn't. Under the assumption that you're getting email templates that are already designed to be, they're not responsive, they're adaptive, right? There's nothing that I've built inside MJML very, very quickly that has failed in even the very oldest clients that you can test in Litmus. So like the dodgy old Android ones that nobody uses anymore and you probably wouldn't even test in. The stuff that comes out of MJML is basically flawless.
Yeah, I'm just going to share the screen, and we might do a post about this on the blog because I think it's a really good one. Just to talk about how to get started with MJML. Just sharing the screen there. But what I like about it is that you can go into Try It Live.
Yes.
You've got this form of markdown on the left-hand side here, and that's showing you how it will look. And you can look at the HTML for that. And,
your screen hasn't updated, the one that you're presenting, Matt.
So
look, you're right. The best thing about it is that you get the URL, and the thing is that URL lives. So you can go and design you go and make your design in here. You have one window open with your design and your code. You have another one open with the documentation that tells you how to put it all together. And you can go and build a big, long email in a couple of hours that if you're trying to code it by hand would take you eons. Even from that point of view, Matt, if you go to view HTML, you can see how the left-hand side is what you've put together in MJML. The right-hand side is the HTML code that's been put together. When I say that HTML code, you can test in any email client, it will work. Yep. And it will be flawless. Which is
the challenge. And as you said,
yeah,
you're really designing with tools, because email clients, you don't know who's going to read it with what. So you've got to assume the worst case scenario, that somebody's got a 20-year-old Outlook out there that they're trying to
yeah, you don't really build with them in mind, but hey, if you can accommodate them, why wouldn't you?
Yep. And that's when you're working with an agency partner, they'll come through and so-and-so couldn't read it with this, fix it up, and trying to address the problem. That's such a small group anyway.
That's probably another point too, right? Like the worst job in email marketing is putting together email templates. There's not many people that do it, and people that have done it before, it's the first job that they want to leave behind them because it's complicated. It's very, very complicated. So from the point of view of like somewhere where you could actually step in, if you knew how to build them, always people that are looking for people that can build email templates because it's finicky and it's annoying. And if you can do it and you can do it quickly, you're gold dust, really.
Yeah. We're going to share that on the blog, just about MJML, and also another service that you could use with it, which is Email.js, and you could create the HTML and then send it using your Gmail account using Email.js. Pretty sure both Email.js has got a free to try, so it's a great way of getting started. Won't cost anything, and it'll let you get your adaptive email skills for HTML sorted out. You mentioned, Jarrett, in there GA, I'm assuming that's Google Analytics.
Oh yeah, Google Analytics, yeah.
And what else? I personally, the consultancy partner focuses more on projects. Yeah, you're going to have to be experienced before you're a consultancy partner because it's knowledge work.
It depends. Like every consultancy, so the likes of Deloitte hire grads, but they don't hire grads with experience. They hire grads with talent in other things, the ability to think quickly, the ability to communicate well. So that's why the other stuff's important. If you wanted to come in on a grad program, you're not going to be earning a lot of money, but or you'll get experience quick and you'll get big, large scale enterprise experience quick.
Documentation, stuff you can learn outside the platform. I'd suggest digging into business process BPMN, understanding how that works. It's a great way of documenting, and also learn how to draw sequence diagrams. Those two things are great ways of communicating intent in documentation, and getting them right takes a little bit of skill. So I think as transferable skills, they're things you can certainly bring in as well. And I think my only other takeaway there was attitude. Probably the most important thing is attitude, because we're all learning, but if you don't have attitude, you're just gonna.
You've got to want to, right?
Yeah.
You've got to want to be. Yeah. I don't know that you have to want to be at work every day, but you know, you've got to want to be getting somewhere. I think you've got to want to learn.
Anything else? Is there any other questions there, Lakshmi? I guess we could possibly wrap up. Did you want to wrap up?
Yeah, absolutely. This is another dimension of transferable skills, I can say, because I haven't seen, that work-life balance. You need to find this one. That point I haven't touched in any of the earlier sessions, if I'm not wrong. Thank you so much for putting all your, experience or your expertise into very little amount of slides, and it was worth attending for me, for sure. Thanks, Jarrett.
Welcome.
Lakshmi, what do people, if they want to share their skills, their transferable skills, what do they do?
Pardon?
If I want to share my transferable skills, what do I do?
How can I answer?
Join the dev group. Watch out for our weekly email, and visit sfmcdg.org. And there'll definitely be some more information there for you to organise the session.
Yeah, I will definitely come back with some other questions to you, Jarrett, for sure.
Anytime. Yep. Send them through.
Yeah, I will. Thank you so much. Thanks,
Cool.
Nilesh, for joining, and Karen, thanks.
Thanks,
Have a-
guys.
Thanks, Jarrett.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Manshu. I couldn't see you.
Thanks all.
Yeah.